Hey everybody, welcome to our first week of conversation on Haggai.
And first conversation of the 25s.
Yeah, I guess it is the new year. Haven't seen you guys since last year. I'm talking about a podcast.
Greg did it.
Oh, yeah. What's funny is that Azu, one of our baristas, who is like subtle funny, she was saying that to customers the other day.
Yeah.
What was she doing?
She was saying,
I'll see you next year.
yeah, she was saying, and then I haven't seen you in over a year. Hey, guy. So Rich is going to bring us through the pronunciation of Hey, guy.
You got it.
Hey guy?
There are two ways to pronounce
He said
Haggai.
Haggai.
It's either Haggai or
There's
Haggai.
Haggai.
There might be three pronunciations
there's
then.
three.
Because there's subdued or
Yeah, that's what you
Haggai.
said. You said hey guy.
Yeah.
Like, hey guy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start calling it subdued.
What's up, dude?
And then Haggai and then
Haggai.
Haggai.
It's sup, dog. What's up, dog? What's the joke? You smell that?
Oh, you got it. You
Knock,
just
knock.
made it worse.
What's up, dog? Up, dog. There I go.
Okay, so what
So
are
it's
the three
Hey,
pronouncements?
hey, guy.
Yes.
Haggai.
Yes. And Haggai.
Haggai.
Which is the same as the first one I said.
No.
I think that's like
Hag, like
I think this is
old
like
animation.
I think this is
Hag.
California
So it's bringing, so that it's moving the syllable. So it's hag.
No,
Instead
it's
of
taking
hay.
it's taking the hay out. It's
hag.
It's a short
Yeah.
A, not a long
Oh.
A.
But I think this
Or
is
he.
also possibly like
Or
California
he.
pronunciation versus Minnesota pronunciation, like
And what is
bag
which?
versus bag.
North
Bag
Dakota.
It's been Haggai my whole life.
Well, it's
Haggai.
it's like 36 verses. It's 2 chapters. It's
short.
It's like a 13-minute read. It's a quick book.
So you can listen to it in between all the drops?
Like 2 or 3 times.
Oh, nice.
We'll be in it 2 weeks?
4.
4 weeks?
The
All January.
So the context of it is that
Wow.
so much of Old Testament writing is the building up to the being taken into exile. There's the dividing Israel and Judah, like God's people break apart, which is unfortunate. It's part of the reality of the story. And they're not getting along. There is this turn back to God. And the prophets, the messengers of God, people that speak for God, is so much of, again, the Old Testament writing is them writing to Judah and Israel going, listen, get rid of your false gods, return to follow the God, follow God. Don't worship false gods, don't burn, get rid of things. And then it's like this repetitive nature of a leader was okay, but they still kept their Asherah poles or whatever their false things, and then the next king would be terrible, and so on and so on. But the prophetic warning over and over again is, there's cost to not having intimate relationship, having a continued relationship with God, worshiping Him only, following His commands. And as predicted, they were taken into exile. Hey, guy. Haggai? Haggai, is that what you want?
You do you, Scooty.
That's
I can. It's
Is
a
that Haggai? Yeah? You're a Haggai guy? Oh, man.
It's a Haggai. I'll make you that t-shirt.
Sounds like a connection group right there.
So, taken in exile, Jeremiah writes in Jeremiah 29, he says, there's this prophetic writing, it says, look, build homes. There is even hope in this moment of exile. And then in a couple verses down, it says 70 years will pass and you'll go back to Jerusalem. And then that's this declaration of the Lord has plans for you. This declaration, keep hope. There's plans for you, plans to prosper. And then in Ezra chapter 1, 70 years had passed and Babylon had fallen, Persia had risen to power. And it's really seems kind of crazy is that the king of Persia, Cyprus? Anyway, the king goes, was I close?
To the name of the king of Persia? Cyrus?
So close. I knew it was in my brain. I could visualize it. Hey, yeah. And all of a sudden, the king goes, you can go back to Jerusalem, and that was a huge, crazy declaration. And he says, and the people should support you, that was a huge thing. And then, as the Ezra 1 continues on, it says, and you know what? Whatever was looted from the temple, you can have that back too. And so it's just crazy shift in culture and world. They had been forcibly removed, and now to be never mind, go back. which had to make the words of Jeremiah, a lifetime earlier, Jeremiah had said these things, and all of a sudden, that moment when you go, oh, Jeremiah wasn't crazy. Wow. It's like one of those moments where you go, God is, wow, you're really real and active and involved. Mm-hmm. And so they go back, and that's where Haggai goes. The people, as they make their way back, and as they are rebuilding the temple there, the prophet comes and goes, he points out the reality right at the beginning of the book, that you say, again, putting their words in their mouth, he says, you say it's not time to rebuild the temple, and it is time to put fine paneling, I think of 1970s basement.
Yeah.
Thing is that in the 70s, the wood paneling wasn't in the basement. It was everywhere.
Yeah.
The reason you remember it being in the basement is because that's where it survived. Let's get some fine 1/8-inch wood paneling.
Oh, I forgot you existed in the 70s.
My bad.
It was everywhere. The smoked glass, wasn't it? Smoked mirrors.
So they, again, the people said, it's not really time to rebuild the temple, which, again, you go to the things that preluded this. Again, the Jeremiah's words, the word from Ezra, you can go back. And it's very clear in those words, go back and rebuild the temple. And then all of a sudden, first lines of this book are, you're saying, it's not time. Let's work on our houses first. Which is, there's such a degree of rationality and beauty to that. Like, hey, we got to live somewhere. But it was not a declaration of like, you should make sure that you have livable houses. It was that you would make your houses ornate. And then from that, the line that is said over and over and over in this book is, give careful thought to your ways. And that's where we pick it up.
I was looking at that section of scripture we're talking about on Sunday, and right after it says, give careful thought to your ways. In verse 6, it's like, you have planted much, but harvested little. You eat, but never have enough. You drink, but never have your fill. You put your clothes on, but are not warm. You earn wages, only to put them in a purse with holes in it. And I was like, that kind of hurts. There's some days where I'm like, I did put my wages in a purse with holes in it.
Literally.
And how, I think the first part is definitely how we need to rebuild the temple. But it's also more than just that. How are you living? How is, you're building this house and it's ornate and you're adding all these extra things, but you plant and you're harvesting little. It's just, I don't know. It was just an interesting practical moment of how are we living this out.
Yeah, Jesus repeatedly gives, I think the one that rises to the surface really quickly is where your treasure is where your heart will be. Mm-hmm. Matthew 6, he talks about worry. And that, and look at the birds, are they fretting about things? And that the tension that Haggai brings to this conversation is that you are working to make sure that you're comfortable and well provided for. And you have to trust in the blessing of God. And that's not that you shouldn't, this isn't a declaration you shouldn't have nice things. And it isn't also a declaration that you shouldn't work to have nice things, but where's your trust? Yeah. Where's your priority?
Priority is what I keep hearing. It's we want to rebuild our homes to this beautiful, beautiful state and then forget to rebuild the temple. I feel like it's just, for me, it just says, what is your priorities? Where, how distracted are you? How beautiful are you going to make your homes before you recognize this temple needs help? Yeah.
I think it can be a potential, this is a conflict moment when you tell somebody you made a bad decision or this is the way you should go or let me teach you something is some degree of vulnerability. But the next one is to go, wow, your priorities are messed up. People love that.
Yeah, I'm super fair, yeah.
But that's I think, in our conversation in preparation for this, is that priorities being given to somebody hopefully we have a degree of reverence and ability to learn, but there is something pretty profound when each of us go through a process of taking on ownership of our priorities as opposed to somebody saying, you should prioritize this. That usually leads to me going, okay.
I was thinking last week during our flip-flop, I was thinking a lot about the one-day workshop we did and just setting priorities for 2025 and what that looks like and just thinking about, because we actually talked about Jeremiah 29 a little bit and that whole section about where these people have been taken into exile, and there's this through 29:4-7 it talks about build houses where you are, don't just go into exile and like throw it all away, be in mourning, everything sucks, but like and it's that cheesy like bloom where you're planted kind of a moment, which I really hate that phrase, but it's the only thing I could think of. And it just had made me think about, what does priorities look like for 2025? What's important to my family? What's important to Camden? How are we as a community setting our priorities? Not just me setting priorities, but our whole community setting priorities. I don't know. When I think about like giving careful thought to our ways, I think it's really easy to, for me at least, more than probably other people, to look at my day and let my day kind of take me. These are the things I need to do today. I'm checking the list. Like when you have little kids, sometimes my kids aren't little anymore, but when you have kids, I know.
You're much older than
Don't
that.
tell Grace you said little.
I know. I didn't say that. When my kid, pick up, drop off, there's just all these, little boxes, and it's easy for the day to end and go, what did I get done? And, it's, without having priorities, it's easy for the day to take me instead of setting focus for what needs to happen. And, I just look at, that verse afterwards, I think it just keeps talking to me. It's like, man, it's so easy for me to feel like, shoot, I did all this investing, but what came of it, and how quick can, not so there's this trusting in God, but there's also I definitely think that there's me, what am I prioritizing? And just hand in hand, it feels really important.
I think the next level from these words of looking to how does you have clothes, but you're still cold, is that when the gospel message of, don't put investment into things that moth and rust will destroy. Yeah. And so you can even say, my clothes do keep me warm, but what good is that going to do in the eternal picture in the long run? I've gotten ahead, and so I built bigger barns. Yeah. There's all of these recurring themes throughout Scripture of trying to get ahead, which is it's in us. We got to make it. But part of making it is circling back and thinking about our priorities. I love the story of Mary and Martha, and Jesus is reclined at the table, and Mary is worshiping, caring for Jesus, and Martha's caring for the event, the meal, and Martha's fretting, stressing. And I am internally and externally, I'm Martha to the core.
You've got a couple layers of Martha.
I got some Martha going on. Sometimes I feel bad about that, and then I know that there are times when it is appropriate to be Martha, and then there are times when I have to hyper-intentionally choose to relax. And you're worried and upset about many things. I feel like that's quoted to me by Jesus many times.
I think you're just the extremes.
Thank you.
Because when you're meeting with the people, you're married.
Present.
You're in the moment.
Yeah, because that's Martha doing the task.
Sure. But still, you don't let the other stuff, most of the time, hit you. Yeah. There are moments.
Yeah. And I think the challenge of that, though, is it's not a matter between good and bad, but it's evaluate your priorities in a moment. Jesus says about Mary has chosen better. And so it will not be taken away from her. And again, what a clear, it's so related to each other. So again, this message from the prophet that you're not getting what you're investing in. And here he says to Mary is that what she's invested in isn't going to be taken from her. And so to give careful thought to your ways, it'll have impact. We're going to end with just letting all right, it's one of those if you're real God moments, which I think is healthy to have. So just we buy or borrow some time here to let people just in themselves have a meditative moment to say, all right, the question's in front of you. give careful thought to your ways. What rises to the surface? The thing that'll be just like, I expect, I would be surprised if it wasn't, but I think the thing that'll be really, really cool about that moment is that it won't be a moment where everybody will say, look at, we all said this, process the same thing. Mm-hmm. They'll all be so different.
Yeah.
And that's where the beauty of, if you're prescriptive in giving people their priorities, you're going to be wrong all the time.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Mm-hmm.
And what if God is, I say this in jest, what if God is real? What if he really does speak to us in that moment?
I love, like, how when we are, as a community, talking about what stirs us and how it makes each of our communities go, this is what stirs you, and like, how do we work together? How do we collaborate? How do we impact our community with the things that are stirring us? And I think it's really exciting. I think it's really cool.
I think the thing that I noticed about this is that there's a lot of call for balance here.
Yeah.
The way that is easiest for me is to finish something, put it in a box, and stick it on the shelf. Go on to the next thing, finish it, stick it in the shelf. But, like the houses in the temple, you don't have to stop, but, you're going way overboard on your houses. So, like, the things where, there are all those things that really excite us about what we're doing in our different fellowships, but there are other things which are not so exciting, but which are just as necessary, and we have to have that balance, and and not just get like completely laser focused on something, but stay balanced, and not abandon the houses for the church, or for the temple, or the temple for the houses. That's hard. It's like that constant tension, and I hate that.
Yeah, and then you bring the New Covenant, New Testament declaration in this that, where is this temple we're supposed to be investing and building up? And it's us. It's us. Yeah. We are the house, the presence, indwelling of God. And so we all have an important part in our priorities, and not only building ourselves up, but in building each other up. And again, think about what's really beautiful in this coming year in launching downtown and in all of our individual communities is that if we can see people in each community that are saying, let's have some priorities. I'm going to give careful thought to my ways, and how can I invest? How can I make the temple of God, the dwelling place of God, as beautiful as it deserves to be? Man, and it'll be different for everybody. But man, that's really, really cool.
Are you thinking deep thoughts, Richard?
I think there's authority in give careful thought to your ways. Because you can look back at Jeremiah and see God is saying, give careful thought to your ways, because I did. Here's the 70 years. Right?
Yeah. Because what a moment you go, he said it was going to be 70 years, and here we are 70 years later, and you just go, God, you
did it. Well, then it's even, Jesus, give careful thought to your ways, because my authority is yours. And then give careful thought to your ways. Paul wrote, be compassionate. Be like all these things. It ties through everywhere, and I think it stems out of the authority of Christ. It stems out of God's plan, and we get to see that. How do we partner with that? How do we give careful thought to our ways in all things?
You brought some Gregisms into it.
Gregisms are sometimes Godisms.